Hello friends, today's lecture is on importance of rural sociology in agricultural extension and their relationship. Introduction. Rural sociology is a branch of sociology. It is the study of the sociology of life in the rural environment, which systematically studies the rural communities to discover their conditions and tendencies and formulate the principles of progress as the term implies. It is limited to the study of various aspects of rural society. On the other hand, agricultural extension is a form of extension education in the field of agriculture and aim at assisting people to bring about continuous improvement in their life work through individual and cooperative efforts. It makes available to the villages scientific information and also guidance in the application of such information in solving their problems. One of the main objectives of agricultural extension is to change their attitudes so as to raise their standard of living. Meaning and scope of rural sociology. Rural sociology is the scientific study of the social behavior of rural people. Rural sociology was established as a subdiscipline towards the beginning of the 20th century, primarily in the United States of America. Early beginnings of rural sociology date to at least 1908, when the United States President T. Roosevelt appointed the County Life Commission. The President was influenced in his decision to set up the commission by Sir Horace Plunkett, who had observed the deterioration of rural life in Ireland and feared that if nothing were done about it, in the United States might face the same situation. After the Second World War, rural sociology became established in European academic and research institutions. In most African and Asian countries, rural sociology was introduced as an invention of Western civilization during the colonial era, particularly in the British territories. There were indications that rural sociological research was conducted in many Asian countries, including India, as historical or anthropological studies long before sociology was established formally as a discipline in its own right. According to Lynn Smith, rural sociology is the study of facts and principles of the systematized knowledge which has developed the application of scientific method in the study of human relationship in rural environment and people engaged directly or indirectly in agriculture occupation. An extension worker is a change agent. Transfer of communication of innovation is the main job of these changes agents. But for introducing improved farm practices and understanding of the farmer, his social or cultural environment within which he operates, his home, his village and the local region is necessary. Rural sociology provides such knowledge and makes possible the planning of a strategic approach for the desired changes. It allows constant analysis of the rural situation and within reasonable limits prediction of possible results. From this point of view, the main emphasis in the community development program is on changing human behavior and working with rural people by using educational methods. For doing this, as stated earlier, the change agent must have adequate knowledge and skill in methods of communication. In addition to this, the change agent must know what's going on in the minds of rural people, their relationships and interactions, their groups, their institutions, their organizations and the culture they share. All these factors influence the farmer's behavior. The knowledge regarding these factors is provided by rural sociology. In the absence of this knowledge of rural society, the change agent will not be able to plan a proper strategy of change. The change agent at the first instant has to understand their program and their objectives. Secondly, he must know the currents of thoughts in the minds of the people with whom he works. He needs to understand their motives, their reactions, their receptivity to new ideas. He should also understand why some people are more receptive than others, why some people take the initiative and lead, and why others hesitate. Broadly, rural sociology works in three main areas. First, accumulation and the use of sociological knowledge and use it for solving the present problems of rural society. We also call it subject matter of rural sociology. Second, direct its efforts in obtaining sociological knowledge by empirical research procedures. We also term it as research in rural sociology. Third, channel its efforts by keeping faith in the methods used in this discipline in solving the problems of rural society. We also call it solving the problems of rural society. Next, let's move on to meaning and scope of agricultural extension. The term extension was derived from the practice of British universities of having one educational program within the premises of the university and another way from the university buildings. The program conducted outside the university was described as extension education. The expression connoted an extension of knowledge from the university to the places and people far, far beyond. The term extension education was first introduced in 1873 by the Cambridge University in England to describe a particular system dedicated to the dissemination of knowledge to rural people where they live and work. Within a short time, the idea had spread to other parts of Britain, Europe, and North America. In the case of India, extension work was primarily started by F. L. Bryan in 1920 in Punjab. The term agricultural extension was only adopted in 1940 when the United States Federal Smith-Lever Act of 1914 formalized a nationwide cooperative federal state country program and gave operational responsibility for this to the land grant colleges and universities. In the beginning, agricultural extension was concerned primarily with the improvement of agriculture using conventional teaching methods. As time went on, home economics, youth programs, and rural community resource development were included. Agricultural extension spread to tropical Africa, the Caribbean, Asia, and Latin America following the involvement of the United States of America in bilateral aid programs after the Second World War. According to Paul Ligans, extension education is an applied social science consisting of relevant content derived from physical, biological, and social sciences and in its own process synthesized into a body of knowledge, concepts, principles, and procedures oriented to provide non-credit out-of-school education largely for adults. Thus, extension education involves extension service. It refers to a program for agricultural development and rural welfare which usually employees of the extension process as a means of program implementation. Extension process is that of working with rural people through out-of-school education along those lines of their current interests and need, which are closely related to gaining a livelihood, improving the physical level of living of rural families, and fostering rural community welfare. The need for extension arises out of the fact that the condition of the rural people in general and the farm people in particular has got to be improved. There is a gap between what is the actual situation and what ought to be the desirable situation. This gap has to be narrowed down mainly by the application of science and technology in their behavior. According to S.B. Suppe, the researchers neither have the time nor they are equipped for the job of persuading the villagers to adopt scientific methods and to ascertain for them the rural problems. Similarly, it is difficult for all the farmers to visit the research stations and obtain first-hand information. Thus, there is a need for an agency to interpret the findings of the research to the farmers and to carry to the problems of the farmers to the research for solution. This gap is filled by the extension agency. Agricultural extension now has three main facets. First, as a discipline, it deals with the behavior of the people. It is educational in content and purposive in approach. Whether the content consists of agriculture, medicine, whether preventive or social medicine, public health, education, engineering, etc., extension is always dependent on a firm knowledge and expertise in sociology, anthropology, psychology, administration, economics, communication arts, political science, and so on. Second, as a process, agricultural extension seeks to influence the behavior of rural people through education and information exchange. The main aim is to assist them in gaining a livelihood, improving the physical and psychological level of living of rural families, and fostering rural community welfare. The success of the extension process requires an atmosphere of mutual trust, helpfulness, and respect on the part of both extension worker and rural people. Third, as a service, agricultural extension makes the government, ministry, the university or voluntary agency as useful as possible to the people who support it through taxes and donations. The concept that the broader function of extension work is to help people to solve their own problem through the application of scientific knowledge is now generally accepted. Agricultural extension is concerned with three basic tasks. First, the dissemination of useful and practical information relating to agriculture and home economics. Second, the practical application of such knowledge to farm and home situations. These are carried out in an informal atmosphere with adults as main clientele. And finally, helping people to use the information in order to help themselves. In agriculture, the scope of extension is very broad. It is not a mere matter of giving the farmer actual knowledge from new research and technology to help him raise his efficiency. It hopes to change his view of life, to persuade him and his family that they may reach and enjoy a higher and richer existence. Importance of rural sociology in agricultural extension. Extension education or agricultural extension in the field of agriculture is concerned with agricultural education aimed at assisting people to bring about continuous improvement in their physical and social well-being through individual and cooperative efforts. It makes available to the villages scientific information and also guidance in application of such information in solving their problems. Villagers are educated to change their attitude so as to raise their standard of living. The interrelationship between rural sociology and agricultural extension as given by Dr. S. B. Prasad indicate the importance of rural sociology in extension education. As far as rural sociology is concerned, first, it is the scientific study of laws of the structure and development of rural society. Second, it studies the attitude and behavior of rural people. Third, it studies the needs and interests of rural society. It analyzes rural social relationship or groups or organizers and leaders in rural areas. Next, it studies social situation and assembles social facts of rural society. 6. It investigates the social, cultural, political and religious problems of rural society. On the other hand, the characteristics of agricultural extension are given below. First, it is informal education for rural people with a view to develop rural society on desirable lines. Second, it seeks to modify or change the attitude and behavior of village people. Third, it helps rural people to discover their needs and problems and builds educational programs based on these needs and wants. Fourth, it utilizes the organizers and leaders to achieve the objectives of rural development. Fifth, it makes use of such social data as a basis for building up extension program for rural people. Sixth, it also studies these problems with reference to their impact on extension work in village. From the above interrelationship between rural sociology and extension education, one can understand that rural sociology will help the extension worker to make a correct diagnosis of the ills of the rural society and evolve a correct prescription or program to overcome these ills. Therefore, rural sociology is important in extension education and in turn to any rural development worker. In conclusion, we can say that each village in India live almost an independent, self-sufficient social and economic existence. That was the unique agrarian socio-economic structure of India. This self-sufficiency was disrupted in British period by the foreign rulers. In social life, the joint family system, the caste, the village panchayat were gradually replaced by the British laws, for example, revenue, judicial, executive, etc. Introduction of modern communication and transport accelerated the above processes. Every aspect of village life, social, economic, political and cultural experienced a steady transformation. Thus, change made an agrarian economy into an acute crisis. The rural sociology studies the various problems concerning the rural society and rural life. Further, countries which have agriculture as main occupation must have the well-established rural sociology faculties. India has been described as a country of villages. In India, about 75% of the population live in about 6 million villages. After independence, both the central and state governments are launching many rural development programs. In this, the role of agricultural extension is significant. Further, rural sociology can help the extension worker to make a correct diagnosis of the ills of the rural society and evolve a correct prescription or program to overcome these ills.